morning and welcome. This is Business Morning. Thank you for joining us. I'm Chimeze Obi Iwago. Well, President Muhammadu Buhari on Tuesday launched the first modular refinery in Nigeria, expected to eliminate imports and increase local availability. The president had named modular refineries as one of the 4 elements in the government's refinery roadmap launched in 2018. The modular refinery, owned by Walter Smith, has 5,000 barrels per day of capacity in the first phase, and this will increase to 50,000 barrels per day in the second phase. Channels Television covered the commissioning.
Is this really happening in Nigeria? Can this happen in our lifetime? Are we ever going to have petroleum products refined here in Nigeria? These are some questions that constantly bug the mind. Well, answers are beginning to emerge from the soil of this country. Let me introduce you to the latest brand new refinery in Nigeria. Yes, refinery. A Nigerian company owned by Nigerians, operated by Nigerians, and that's Walter Smith Refining and Petrochemical Company Limited, has brought guests, industry captains, bankers, traditional rulers, regulators, and even the president, who joins virtually to celebrate this milestone. The first modular refinery in Ibikwe, Ohaji Egbema, Imo State.
The combined products expected at full capacity will include premium motor spirit, PMS, and LPG, and jet fuel, in addition to the existing products mentioned above, contributing about 2.7 billion liters of products per annum. This represents 10% of total refined products consumption in Nigeria and significant foreign exchange savings for the nation, as well as job creation for thousands of our people.
We have taken 200 candidates and we're shortlisting 80 of them for the first phase, not to train them as welders or artisans, but to train them as engineers, operations, maintenance, and refinery engineers.
They have promised, they have kept their promise, particularly for delivering on this project on schedule. And also the promises that this company represents for the rest of us, so that the ultimate objective of government to deepen local refining, including local value to our economy, is realized.
Walter Smith obtained license to establish in June 2015. Authority to construct in March 2017, signed an EPC contract in June 2018, commenced construction of the modular refinery in October 2018, and is being delivered in less than 24 months. The president sure feels fulfilled about this achievement in his time that he had to make this pronouncement.
I'm directing the Ministry of Petroleum Resources, Department of Petroleum Resources, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, as well as all relevant government agencies, to provide Walter Smith Refining and Petrochemical Company all the necessary support with regards to access to crude oil and condensate feedstock for the timely delivery of the additional capacity.
The 5,000 barrel per day crude oil refinery has a crude oil storage capacity of 60,000 barrels and is projected to deliver over 271 million liters per annum of refined products, which include kerosene, diesel, naphtha, and heavy fuels oils to the domestic market. It has already commenced operation since November 3rd.
Yes. And of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
It's the unveiling of the first modular refinery, but also the groundbreaking for an expansion from 5,000 barrels a day capacity to accommodate additional 45,000 barrels daily production.
You don't have to do pipelines to exporting your crude oil. This form of development is to be able to create a hub and then build a refinery, create the facilities there, create businesses within the facility. This is actually the way to go, and we are quite happy with what Walter Smith is doing.
I want to urge other operators or license holders to go and make real the licenses issued to them by government. But for now, let me concentrate on what I have seen that is working.
In 2018, President Buhari rolled out a refinery roadmap to include the rehabilitation of existing refineries, co-location of new refineries, construction of greenfield refineries, and deployment of modular refineries, all ultimately geared towards making Nigeria a net exporter of refined petroleum products. Olu Phillips, Channels Television News.
All right, let's meet the man responsible for this great achievement, the chairman of Walter Smith Group, Mr. Abdulrazak Issa. Congratulations, sir, for this wonderful achievement. Well, I just hope you can hear me, Mr. Issa. Anyway, the question our reporter put out, yes, I can hear you. Congratulations.
Hello. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yes, you're welcome. Now, the question our reporter put out there is this happening in Nigeria? Can we actually have our petroleum products refined in Nigeria? So tell me, what was the motivation for this investment and the push to start refining? I know that investors and private sector operators like you have been asking the government to deregulate price to make the business attractive. Now, government says it has deregulated. Is that why you started producing? Is this the type of deregulation you looked forward to?
I'm having challenges hearing what you're saying very well, but I'll just try and answer what I thought I heard. Just to be clear, for me, I'm not an oil person, a traditional oil person that you describe. But I came from outside. I came from outside of the industry. And so it gave me an opportunity to look at the industry as an independent mind. And that has enabled us to come up with a perspective that is slightly different from what others are doing. And basically, what we just thought is that there must be a connection between the industry and the wider economy. Right now, what we're doing is essentially to produce oil and export it and get the revenue. There is no direct linkage between the oil that is produced in Nigeria and the rest of the economy. And we then decided as a company that we are going to attempt to do something that is different. And so we started, once we got the marginal field and we started producing it, after about 4 to 5 years, and considering the challenges that we're having with exporting the oil, we decided to refine-tune our strategy. And that's how the whole idea of domestic refining started. Because what we're experiencing was a loss of revenue of about 30% of the oil that we produced due to theft and pipeline vandalization. And that then helped us to start thinking about what we should do to mitigate all of that as well. And so the idea of putting a modular refinery in the field where we're producing the oil was then further fine-tuned to make a business case out of it. And that's how we then started talking to other partners like the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board to join us in de-risking the project and bringing it into fruition. Fortunately for us, the government has also started the initiative of there's a serious echo going on.
Oh, I'm very sorry about that. I'm sure engineers will take care of that. But if you can still hear me very well, the first phase of this refinery has a capacity of 5,000 barrels per day and is expected to increase to about 50,000 barrels per day in the second phase. Now, can you simplify this to a common man?
How the project started? And
yes.
We then continued.
Yes, can you hear me? Can you hear my question? Well, I think we just have to take a short break and correct the anomalies here, and we'll get back to you, Mr. Reza. All right, Mr. Abdulrazak Issa, well, sincerely apologize for that obstruction there. Well, I was asking, the first phase of this refinery has a capacity of 5,000 barrels per day and is expected to increase by 50,000 barrels per day in the second phase. So I wanted you to simplify this to a common man, what this current 5,000 barrels per day will amount in terms of number of trucks of PMS and AGO per day, and what it will be when you ramp it up to 50,000 barrels per day.
Thank you very much once again for having me. Yes, so the 5,000 barrels per day will deliver about 271 million liters of four products. HFO, AGO, which is diesel, DPK, which is kerosene, and naphtha. And this will amount to about 740,000 liters of these four products every month. Every day. Now, and what that means is that we'll be loading about 23 trucks of these products out of our refinery every day. And so when we'll be consuming annually about 1.8 million barrels of oil to do this refining. Because on a monthly basis, we'll be processing about 150,000 barrels of oil, because it's 5,000 barrels of oil per day capacity. Now, once we ramp up to about 50,000 barrels per day, we'll be consuming about 18 million barrels of oil, and that will amount to about 2.7 billion liters of products annually. And that also becomes about 200 trucks every day that will come out of that refinery. And this has significant impact in terms of job creation, in terms of helping to stimulate and meet the energy needs of the southeastern part of Nigeria. This is significant by all accounts. And just to give you a perspective on all of this, and I'll just share with you a testimony from one of the off-takers of our products that came to speak to me during the commissioning of this plant. He said to me, look, it now takes them about 2 hours between when they lift products and when it gets to their petrol station. In the past, they used to send trucks to Lagos, to Warri, to Port Harcourt, to Calabar, to transport products into Imo State. But today, it takes about just 2 hours. And what they see is the quick turnaround of their sales. And that is now beginning to impact the cost at which, or the price at which they sell their products within the petrol station. They're now considering to drop their prices because of the frequency they're able to lift and sell products within their petrol station. I think this is remarkable. For me, it was a very heartwarming testimony from somebody who is a direct beneficiary. Now the people of Imo State are taking ownership of this refinery because it's like a corner shop for them. They don't have to go outside of Imo to go and buy products. Now they can just drive into Ohaji, drive into our refinery, load their products, and have it distributed. Now, by the time we then scale it up to about 50,000 barrels per day, the impact will be across this entire southeastern states. Most of the states we envision that most of the states will now become energy sufficient in terms of petroleum products, because at that stage, we're going to go from DPK, kerosene, HFO, and naphtha. We'll now have LPG, PMS, and aviation fuel. So we'll now have 7 products. We'll go from 4 products now to 7 products. And that is going to really meet substantially the energy requirements of the southeastern states. And we'll have made a significant dent in terms of our import bill into the nation. And the whole aspiration for us is to be able to meet about 10% of Nigeria's energy consumption through our refineries by the time we get to 50,000 barrels per day. And I think that definitely the people of the Southeast in particular will be the major beneficiaries of this initiative of ours.
Now, Mr. Issa, how do you plan to deal with supply of feedstock given the existing regime of crude oil supply under the Petroleum Act? Will you be buying from NNPC?
Well, I tell you, remember that we started as a marginal field producer. We took an abandoned field that had been left unattended for about 20 years. And we went in there, worked it, and started producing it. before that, we also went ahead to do some exploration work. It had a total reserves of about 17 million barrels. And when we did some exploration work, we were able to prove it up to about 24 million barrels. Today, we have produced about 12 million barrels of that field. And what we have left can barely support our existing refinery for another 6 to 7 years. And that's why we then are beginning to look at opportunities around us for sources of additional feedstock, even for this first phase, for it to be sustainable over the next 20 years. And it's on that note that, first of all, we are talking to Seplat. Seplat is sitting next to us. We are handling crude oil for them, crude oil processing for them. And once it comes into our facility, we put it in the export line in the TMP for export. Now we are negotiating with them to offtake some of that crude. But this is a third-party crude. For us as an upstream company, it is very important and strategic that we have our own reserves of crude oil, and which is why we have participated in the ongoing marginal field bid round, and we are looking at some assets that are close to us. And the whole idea is that we'll develop these assets and tie them into our existing facility so that it can become additional feedstock for us. But even at that, that won't be sufficient to drive the expansion program that we have. We are looking at assets that are not too far away from us. There are assets in OML 21 and OML 20. We are talking to government, NNPC and its JV partners about providing the funding for the development of some of these assets so that we can ramp up production from there and use this oil from there as feedstock into the expansion program. And on top of that, there is an ongoing development, which is called the Asa North gas development. We are currently engaged with the government and the NNPC about the possibility of taking the condensate from that gas development, which is going to be the feedstock for our standalone condensate refinery. And that has a capacity of about 25,000 barrels per day. So when you combine that, that source of feedstock, plus these other ones that are potentially going to come from OML 20 and OML 21, we think that we will have some amount of feedstock that will enable us sustain the long-term production and operation of the expanded refinery. We estimate that around that whole area, there is potentially reserves in excess of about 300 to 400 million barrels sitting there, all of them looking at being developed and exported. What we think we are going to achieve is that we are going to change the game. We are going to be game changers in that environment because all of that oil that is being produced by the various companies around there will no longer need to go to the Niger Delta, go to Bonny for export. We can trap most of it into our refinery and begin to develop it and process it and sell it within the southeastern market. Our aspiration as a company has always been the fact that we want to bring this connection between oil production and oil extraction and the real economy. By processing in this first phase these 4 products, you can see clearly that our people are getting the direct benefit of oil production. Most people who are operating in Niger Delta just see that oil is being produced and exported straight out. But by our activity, our people are going to get the direct benefit of all of this. And so you see that about four beneficiaries right now. 4 groups will benefit from what we are doing. The HFO that we are producing from this first modular refinery, that is...
Yes. I was trying to get your attention there. Anyway, yes. We will be back with you shortly. We have to take a quick break. Of course, we'll be back with you shortly. And of course, also coming up, our commodities market update. Do stay with us. Welcome back. Well, we'll still have the chairman, Watersmith Group, Mr. Abdul Razak Issa. Thank you very much, sir, for sticking on there with us. All right. Now, oil price, we know, is currently at $48 in the international market. I want to know what regime of pricing will guide your supply, and looking at the issues in fuel price increase, which is now a problem, how soon are we likely to see fuel price moderate or coming down as expected?
I'm lost. I can't even hear what she said. Thank you very much. As you know, we're in the segment of the market that has been deregulated for a very long time. Diesel, kerosene has been deregulated, and we're essentially producing that from our refinery. The issue of PMS, where we still have some issue of deregulation, that's going to be in our next phase. But as you understand, the market is very dynamic. Price of the petroleum products naturally follow the price of crude oil. Of course, it is not good news when the price of crude oil increases, because it will naturally impact the price at which we sell the products. Because it's going to impact the price at which we buy the crude oil, put it through the refinery process, and then begin to sell it into the domestic market. So we expect that there will be that pressure for us to adjust our prices naturally, because we're not going to refine at a loss. We're going to try and make a margin. The margin on refining is very thin, and therefore it is critical that there's always room for us to be able to sell our products domestically. So we're watching the market carefully. We always know that there will be opportunity for us to compete against imported refined products. Because the key is that the products that are being imported into Nigeria today have to be cleared through the ports, they have to be transported into the southeast, and all of those attendant costs impact the overall price that the consumer buys this product. What we are offering in the market is the fact that we are producing crude oil in Imo State, we are refining it domestically, and we eliminate all of those additional costs that come with it. So we are able to then sell it competitively in the domestic market. So we essentially we are benchmarking whatever we are doing against the key competition, which is imported products. And we are confident that we will be able to refine and sell our products in the market competitively.
Now, another issue there is distribution of products from the refinery. What plans do you have in this regard? Is it through pipeline or trucks?
No, I just explained to you that our refinery, we have the capacity, this first phase, we have the capacity to deliver 23 trucks every day of the various products that we have. And we have a turnaround time of 5 hours to load those trucks and for them to leave our refinery. Our loading rate is about average of 2 hours per truck. So we're able to load trucks very quickly for them to get to the consumers. Now the key is that trucks come into our refineries, they're loaded very quickly, they get to the consumers also very quickly. And the turnaround time is very fast. It's not like a question of when people used to go out to Lagos, go to Port Harcourt, and go to Calabar to go and load products. It is very quick, and our people are very efficient. We have a very effective management team that is running the refinery right now. And so the turnaround time, in terms of uptime for this refinery, the way we envisage it, is going to be very effective. So because we are looking at returns on investment to our shareholders, and therefore it is important that we put up the best of our team in terms of the management and operation of this refinery. So we don't expect that there's going to be downtime. We're going to be very, very efficient in the distribution of all of this. We have an ongoing engagement with the IPMAN in the southeast. They're already talking to us, and we have an understanding that they are going to be lifting all of these products and distributing them within the southeastern market. So in terms of offtake and distribution, I don't think we have an issue. But when it comes to the expansion of the plant, what we are looking to do is to build a 15-kilometer road network that connects the refinery onto the Port Harcourt-Aba Expressway. Because, like I said, we're going to have about 200 trucks leaving the refinery at peak. And therefore, it's very important for us to have a solid road infrastructure that can handle that level of traffic. And so that's all going to be part of the overall project cost when we start building that refinery. And what that will do is to ensure that there is smooth movement of our products between the refinery into the rest of the southeastern market. Being in Imo State, all of the neighboring states, there's a good road network that connects most of them. When you go from Owerri, for example, into Enugu State, into Anambra State, into Abia State, and into Ebonyi State, there's a good connection of roads around that area. And so we are very confident that our products will be effectively distributed within the 5 eastern states, and therefore it can make our products very, very competitive. Our long-term objective is to be the major suppliers of petroleum products into the southeast, using most of the crude oil that is going to be derived from the southeastern market itself. So by the time you eliminate all of these transportation costs, transportation in terms of trucks going from distant places and just distributing within the neighboring states, and transportation costs in terms of crude oil being transported from Imo State to the Niger Delta, would have eliminated that cost completely, which is currently at about $5 per barrel, not to talk about the 30% losses that you record when you export crude oil from those places. You have eliminated most of those costs, and therefore it makes your cost elements quite competitive in terms of input to the refinery. And then you eliminate and reduce the cost of transportation of products, the refined products, within the southeast itself. It definitely improves your margin, overall margin on your product. So essentially, that's the strategy that we're looking at. And like I've also said, we're trying to use the refinery itself as a platform for opening up that area into an industrial park, with us being the first industry located within that park itself, which is what you see during the commissioning. We signed an agreement with the United Nations Industrial Development Organization and the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. Those two international agencies are supporting our company to develop how a world-class industrial park can be developed within that area. The whole idea for us is around the same aspiration of connecting oil extraction activity to the real economy. Because once we extract the oil, we process it there, it begins to get distributed into the rest of the economy. And by the time we then go on to the next phase of our development, which is the petrochemicals, we can then have petrochemical products that serve as inputs into manufacturing activities. Our industrial park will then have the ability to host companies, manufacturing companies that would use inputs from the petrochemical industry as raw materials. And over the long term, we see ourselves emerging, creating a big industrial hub that will share the infrastructure with us. Right now, we are generating electricity. We have a license from NEC to generate about 300 megawatts of power, and that power is going to be generated using gas, again from that same area. As you are aware, there's about 60 CF of gas that is being developed in that area. The whole strategy for us is to take some of that gas and use it as feedstock into our power generation activity. That power, our plan is to distribute it within the industrial park area. And that way, companies can come in and locate with us and use this, have access to the power, which guarantees them power 24/7. And that has a significant impact on the cost of their operation. As you know, today, manufacturing is impacted significantly by the cost of electricity and the efficiency factors in terms of delivery of electricity. The goal for us is to just scale up our current operations and services that we provide for ourselves. We are generating electricity using gas for our facility today. We are going to increase the capacity of our power generation activity in modules, starting with about 30 megawatts of power until we can scale it up depending on the demand and the uptake of our industrial park. We'll scale it up to the maximum level of our license, which is about 300 megawatts, and then we're delivering it to companies that are going to be located within our park. But most importantly, we are going to be the first off-takers of that power, because our refinery, by the time we finish the 50,000 barrels per day refinery capacity, we're probably going to utilize about 10 megawatts of electricity. So we'll be the first consumers of our service. But then we'll have enough capacity, excess capacity, that we're going to use for other third parties that are going to be located in that area. And in addition, we're going to provide security, we're going to provide water, and all the other ancillary services that will enable the effective operation of an industrial park. Now, the impact of all of this is the connect that you're going to see between oil that is being produced and the rest of the industry and the rest of the economy. Right now, we are talking to a number of the manufacturers, the pharmaceutical manufacturers, for example, are looking to come and co-locate with us within that facility because they can see that we're serious. They can see that we have actually executed a project. We've conceived and executed a project. And now when we talk about developing an industrial park, they are indeed listening and they want to be part of the companies that are going to be located there. And by the time we then get onto petrochemicals, other manufacturers will definitely aspire to come and locate in that area. So that's our long-term view and our long-term aspiration. Like I said, the aspiration is essentially driven by our vision that there is need to connect oil production, oil extraction with the rest of the economy, which is not what we are doing in Nigeria today. Today we are producing oil and just exporting it. We want to add value to it, yes.
All right. Mr. Abdulrazak Issa, we do appreciate your time with us and on the show. And more grease to your elbow. Thank you. Well, constant hike in fuel price and continuous contentious issues. Of course, hopefully with Walter Smith Refinery coming on board and perhaps soon Dangote Refinery will say bye-bye to constant hike in fuel prices. Let's talk commodities now with Desola Sumoni of Financial Derivatives Company. Good morning, Desola. Well, Nigeria's first modular refinery has come on board and we expect Dangote Refinery to start operations soon. What will these mean for the downstream petroleum industry and all the talk about increasing fuel price? When oil price goes up, we'll take it up. When it comes down, we'll bring it down.
Thanks for that question, Chimizi. I think it's positive for the entire downstream oil sector in the sense of, especially also the value chain in terms of, creating jobs, providing incentives for investments, which has multiplier effect on more investment. I also think on more jobs. I also think it is positive for the exchange rate and the external reserves in terms of reducing Nigeria's import bill and reducing pressure on the external reserves as well as the exchange rate. However, I think it's important to note that, this is not a silver bullet, it's not a magic wand that will take away all our problems. I think it has the potential to reduce the landing cost of petroleum products in Nigeria. However, given what we know about production in Nigeria, given the binding structural constraints as well as logistics issues, it is possible that those factors may affect the cost of production. So I think it's interesting to see how these Dangote and this Walter Smith are able to manage these increases in cost of production due to structural factors and how that will affect the end price or the selling price of PMS and other petroleum products.
Now, optimism about smooth Biden transition in the U.S. and COVID-19 vaccine breakthroughs have continued to rally oil prices. Where do you see oil price as the year comes to an end? And the way it's going, is Nigeria likely to see another hike in fuel price before the year ends?
Like you said, Chimizi, oil is having a bullish run right now, driven by many factors. The vaccine breakthroughs. We are seeing the post-election uncertainty, after President Trump refused to defeat. We are seeing that wane. We are seeing weaker US dollar. We are seeing hopes, that, the OPEC Plus alliance would extend their, production cut for another 3 to 6 months. We're also seeing surprise drawdowns in stockpiles in the US. So all these factors are good for oil. And because of those factors, we think that oil would, probably end the year average around $47 per barrel, and in December, orange between $48 to $50 per barrel by the end of the year. Now, regarding another fuel price hike, I think that we're not likely to see another one this year, probably early next year, if this rally in oil prices persist.
Now, back here, in line with expectations, the MPC left all monetary policy parameters unchanged at their meeting on Tuesday. So what do you think would be the implication of that on commodities, domestic commodities?
I think, first of all, that was the optimal decision, given, taking all the relevant factors into consideration. I think, it was even a unanimous vote. Regarding the impact on domestic commodity prices, I think it will be muted because the average guy on the streets did not know that, the MPC met at all. All he knows is that, things are more expensive. He knows that the price of rice is higher, beans is higher, and all those things are higher. And, the central bank has repeatedly stated that, the hike we are seeing in inflation, or the galloping inflation we are seeing, is not driven by monetary factors. Rather, it's driven by structural factors, logistic factors, and insecurity in the country. So monetary policy tools, or conventional monetary policy tools, would be impotent against affecting the inflation. So in that regard, the FP decision had little or no effect on the price of domestic commodity prices. I think we are going to have to wait, and the central bank has said that, in the near to medium term, as production increases after the post-lockdown period, as economic activity increase and production increase, that inflation will taper down in the medium term. So we have to wait and see that.
All right, thank you very much, Desola Sumoni. Thank you. Time.
Thank you for
We'll take a break now. When we come back, we do a crossover to London for the opening call. Please stay with us. UK Chancellor Rishi Sunak yesterday set out his spending review, and his speech is being digested. That's where I will start my conversation with Juliana this morning. Hello, Juliana. Good morning. Well, Chancellor Rishi Sunak says COVID economic emergency has only just begun. What interpretation are people giving to this statement?
Good morning, Jimmy. Well, the direct implication of yesterday's statement really is that the road to economic recovery for Britain is going to be long and hard. And we got a little taste of what could be coming up in the next couple of years during Chancellor Rishi Sunak's spending review. Typically, we'd expect a spending review from a government to pan about 3 or 4 years. But of course, because of the crippling of the British economy at the moment, we only got a 12-month taster. One of them being is that there will be a public sector pay freeze that affects about 5.2 million people and won't directly impact frontline workers in the NHS, but for middle management, for teachers, for police officers, that will certainly affect them. And surprise, surprise, the cut from 0.7% to 0.5% of the international overseas aid budget was pretty controversial. We actually saw a couple of resignations, and 3 prime ministers, including 2 Tory prime ministers, Sir John Major and David Cameron, as well as Tony Blair, spoke publicly against cutting the overseas budget because it would assist in pushing over 100 million people into extreme poverty. But those were just 2 of the cuts. We are going to expect quite a few more over the next couple of years. Currently, as it stands, according to the Chancellor, the coronavirus bill at the moment stands at about £280 billion this year alone. I know a lot of my viewers in Nigeria will correct me, but I believe that's the equivalent of about 142 trillion naira. Next year, we're expecting to spend about £73 billion on coronavirus spending. The Chancellor also signalled that unemployment is expected to peak in Q2 2021 to about 7.5%. At the moment, it's currently 4.8%, but of course, it's being supported by the furlough scheme, which is keeping people in jobs. So we're expecting about 2.5 million Brits to be out of a job. next year. There have been lots of speculation about where this money is going to come from. There are suggestions that it could come from a capital gains tax increase or the self-employed. The self-employed have been given assistance from the government, but unlike a lot of the other loans, the self-employed support has been a grant. So there are suggestions that perhaps the self-employed will be able to offer some support. But at the moment, considering the scale of the economic crisis that Britain is going through, following the advice from the IMF, following the advice from the OECD, the British Treasury are at the moment supporting wherever they can. But clearly, it's becoming quite obvious that next year the public purse is going to be tightened and people are going to have to be paying back through some sort of tax increase.
And the Chancellor also says the government will launch a levelling up fund for England worth about £4 billion to support towns and communities with regeneration projects. But some groups have warned that Chancellor's plan may pit local communities against each other. What do they mean by that?
Oh, well, what they mean by that is this new levelling up budget, I believe it's £4 billion, is going to be run by Westminster, so run by the central power in London, and local communities through their MP will be able to bid for funds of up to £20 million. And now the levelling up has been a huge issue in this country because last year during his campaign, as part of his manifesto, Prime Minister Boris Johnson said that he would overturn Britain's lopsided economy and bring much needed regeneration and infrastructure to the north of London and to the devolved nations. Of course, that's been put on hold because of the COVID pandemic, and even during some of the tiered restrictions, some areas of the north felt that they were put into some restrictions that didn't make sense and wasn't fair, and that London and the southeast were being left to continue thriving in their hospitality sector. So Rishi Sunak has answered these calls and he has put this fund up, but northern leaders are not happy with the fact that they have to compete and bid for these funds. They believe that these funds should be quite fairly distributed evenly. I've got a statement here. This statement is from Sarah Longwood. She's the director of a pretty a reputable think tank in the north of England. She says what we really needed today, speaking yesterday, was the ambitious plans to empower local leaders and people to lead our recovery from COVID-19 and from our regional divides. What we got was a sticking plaster. So they're not happy that Westminster want to keep control. Andy Burnham, the mayor of Manchester, was pretty tough talking, saying that there's no point in Downing Street trying to find out and trying to find a resolution for the north, that the power should be given to them so they can decide how they can best support their communities with the money being handed out by government.
Well, Juliana, I know you have a date with BC later in the day, so you'll give us more update then. Okay, back here, the private sector coalition against COVID-19, COVID, is giving support to the Nigerian youth. This is coming as a way of healing the wounds from the NSAS protest. The president of Dangote Group, Alhaji Aliko Dangote, explains that COVID will train Nigerian youths on skill acquisition to boost youth entrepreneurs in the country. He was speaking at a media briefing by COVID in Lagos yesterday.
What we are doing, we have almost about now 30,000. We are going to 30,000 workers at our Lekki site, which we are going to now, go up to 50. 25 to 28% maximum will be foreign workers. The rest will be Nigerians, which they will be trained as we are going through these buildings. I mean, the construction, the electrical, the instrumentation, the fabrication, the welding. So by the time that we finish, we are going to have a lot of people who are already trained on the job. It means that we don't really need to bring in anybody for, not only us, anybody who is doing this mega project. They don't need to go and bring foreigners to now come in. Even if we train them, let's say that, yes, we don't have a job here. We have neighboring countries that they can go and work. Today, in the construction industry, we have a lot of Ghanaians, we have a lot of Togolese, we have people from Benin Republic, which they are making a living. Why are they making a living? Because we don't have enough trained skills. Once we create the skills, we'll be able now to also allow them to go somewhere and find jobs and be remitting money, home.
Aliko Dangote, the President Dangote Group. Well, it's on that note, we draw the curtain on today's edition of the program. Thank you for watching. I'm Chimeze Obi Iwago.